Last August, I nearly witnessed a lifer. In the birding community, a lifer is a bird you're only going to see once. Talked to Taylor, yeah, he confirmed all this for me. Well, I'm using the term lifer for any event you're only going to see once in your lifetime. And what I nearly witnessed was a Kemp Ridley sea turtle hatching. These are the rarest sea turtles in the world. They come on the beach in North Carolina, they lay their eggs, and then they leave, never to see the little babies again. And then at night, about 60 days later, the turtles will come out of the sand and make this perilous journey down to the water, where crabs and sea turtles peck at them and eat them. My sister, my brother, and I stayed on the beach until 3 a.m. when we got kicked off, and then we found out the next morning that the hatching had happened at 5 a.m. So close, but it slipped through our fingers. I didn't get to witness it, but it did get me thinking. Being a sea turtle is no easy task. They spend 2 months in the egg. It's warm, it's safe, you're in the sand, you're not worrying about a whole lot, and then all of a sudden something inside them just signals, and it's time for them to get out of the sand and make this trek down to the sea. Essentially, Juan, Jen, and Greg talked to me last August and asked if I wanted to be a sea turtle. January was to be my appointed hatching time, and that was when I would become interim training camp director. Since January, I've been making my journey down to the sea. But before I get into that trek, I want to point out something very important, and that's that no sea turtle goes down to the sea without an incubation period first. They're not ready 1 week after fertilization to be heading out on their own, you know? They have this incubation period, and I had my incubation period as well in training camp. I had 2 months before training camp started in 2016 to create computer curriculum and get ready to teach computer classes. And then I had, sorry I have to reuse an old joke there, then I had 10 months to be a computer teacher. I was teaching classes, I had time to see Jen lead training camp, I had time to figure out how to have difficult conversations with leaders and how to interact with leaders. And because of that incubation time, when January came around, I was ready for something new. I was ready to break out of that egg, crawl out of the sand, and run. And it's been an adventure. And for any sea turtle, there's lots of adventure going on, you know? There's water that you're headed towards. There are obstacles in your way, like driftwood and rocks, and large mounds of sand to overcome. Little accomplishments in the journey. And for me, in the fellowship in these past 5 months, I've had accomplishments as well. First off, I successfully directed 2 training camps. And I don't know exactly what unsuccessfully directed would have looked like. Maybe things being shut down halfway. Thankfully, for neither training camp that happened. I've grown in the area of event planning. I planned and ran 2 mock interviews, which beforehand thinking about those, I was pretty worried about them because I have a tendency of leaving details until the last minute, but there were just too many moving parts to do that, such as contacting volunteers ahead of time to make sure that the date worked for them, contacting all of you staff over at the cottages to ask if I could kick you out of your offices, and creating the scheduled day agenda for both the leaders and the volunteers. But with the help of training camp staff, we pulled off 2 successful mock interview days. In addition to that, I also, back in March, planned a staff retreat, which is something I'd never done. These were both areas that forced me to think ahead. I also grew and improved in the realm of personal communication. I led 18 staff meetings, which caused me to plan an agenda ahead of time, keep the conversation on topic so we could accomplish everything that we'd set out to do, and also pick out a good YouTube video so we set the meeting off on the right foot. Another improvement in the realm of communication was that I taught 55 classes, which is more classes than I've ever taught before on a wider spectrum of subjects than I've ever taught before. This time around also, I got to be a part of both the coaching and firing meetings with leaders, which was something I had not done before I stepped into the director's position. I remember the first few times I was involved in firing leaders, I would walk up the stairs into the coaching room up there, and I'd be all out of breath because I just walked up the stairs and I was super nervous. So I'd be talking to these leaders and I'd be like, I think you know. Why I'm calling you up here right now? So I got better at my breathing control. Took a little bit of time for me to calm down, and I also got better at those conversations. I improved at jumping right into the meat of what I wanted to talk about instead of having a small talk because I was too awkward to actually break a subject that I needed to break into. And I think I also got better at gently kind of piecing aside things and getting to the meat of the issue, and then also gently walking through with the leaders why that issue is there and also possible solutions to that issue. I also grew in the area of reporting. I presented or created 6 training camp reports for the directors' meetings, and Jen and I and training camp staff also created a 90-minute presentation for Cultivate. For all the successes and accomplishments, there are also hang-ups and difficulties as well. And no sea turtle gets all the way down to the water, you know, without a bruised flipper or two. So, for me, one of the most difficult parts of this trimester was adjusting to greater responsibility. I was suddenly in charge of classroom management, dealing with leader situations, and leading training camp staff. Firing leaders was a tough one for me. It got a little bit easier as I got better at it and was just okay with the disappointment and the hurt and the tears that would come with it, but I never enjoyed it, and I don't think I ever will, and I think that's okay. It was also difficult for me to delegate well and make sure everyone in training camp at times was on the same page. I think if I were to do it over again, I would over-communicate and make sure everyone knows what is going on and to make sure everyone is doing well in their different roles. The last difficulty of the past 5 months for me was dropping the ball when it came to personal habits that I had. I stopped running and lifting weights. It's been 4 months since I've last sent out a newsletter to my supporters, and I've had struggles keeping up with wedding planning and meal prep. Why was that? I feel that I had a lot less energy in the evenings after a long day of work, and I feel that the added stress, responsibility, weight of leading training camp made it difficult for me to be disciplined in these areas when I would come home and want to unwind and not do anything. This challenging journey, these past 5 months, have been the most difficult times of work that I've ever had. The second training camp ended on Friday, and I spent some time just thinking through some of the feelings that I have when I look back over the last 4 months. I feel tired. I feel relieved that things are over. I'm proud of what I accomplished, and I'm really proud of training camp staff for all that we accomplished together. I realize how much I hate being unliked and knowing that I'm unliked. I'm humbled and so grateful for the opportunity to lead and to be challenged in the way that I've been challenged. And I'm also humbled by how difficult the work was. The last 5 months were very stretching for me. I've been developed and pushed past what I thought I could do. But at the same time, it came at the right time. You see, no turtle makes that long trek down to the beach just to like dip a tail in the water, cool off their shell or something like that. No, they go all the way down there for a big reason. And what has my journey of the past 5 months been for? What has been my reason? For one, I realized I like leading others. In the future, I'd like to be a manager or director of others, and I got to do that some in the past 5 months, and I would love to continue to develop that part of me. And the second thing is that I'd like to be a teacher. And I never had any idea that I want to do this until training camp, and especially the last 5 months. As a result of my time in training camp, and especially my time as director, I would like to move toward teaching in my future. Teachers must be able to create curriculum, they must be able to grade assignments, deal with parents, students, and administrators. Thankfully, I didn't have to deal with any parents of my leaders. But I know that's not the case for all of you guys, so I had to deal with many different assignments, and I think that some of the skills that I've developed over the past 5 months would transfer well to being a teacher. Like I said, I never ever wanted to be a teacher, and I never would have figured that out, never would have discovered that, never would have had the opportunity to lead in the way that I have in the past 5 months without some very key players in here. So I'd like to extend my thanks. Patty, thank you for modeling me what prayer looks like and the power of a loving and gentle heart. You have an instant bond with everyone in the training camp classroom when you walk in and say, I already love every single one in here, and I know that you mean it. Ray, thank you for your persistent questions. Thank you for helping me see myself in a new way. Thank you for showing me what it looks like to lead out of submission to God. Greg, thank you for seeing potential in me. Thank you for not being satisfied with my insecurities holding me back. And thank you for pushing me, and especially for pushing me in the last 5 months towards this position that I've been in this place that I find myself at now. And Jen, thank you for leading me the last year and a half, for showing me how to lead with firmness and graciousness, for modeling how to teach and control a classroom, and create safety in the classroom by being the first one to be vulnerable. Thanks also for the notes of encouragement that you put on my desk. I remember After one particularly rough training camp staff meeting, I started crying because of how rough just a couple situations of the leaders were, and it just seemed so bleak and I had no hope. So I started crying and I got back to my desk and Jen had just left a note on my card simply saying, "Thank you for your tears." Mm-hmm. Jen, you created training camp. You've led it so well, and you walked with me the last 5 months as I've stepped in and you stepped back. You built a plane and I took the controls when it was in the air. Thank you for trusting in me. In closing, buckle up, Delta. I've never given a commencement speech before, always wanted to, so here's my commencement speech to you all, inspired by the birthing cycle of sea turtles. First, head in the direction you're meant to head in. Sea turtles naturally go towards the most lit place, and on a private beach, that would be the ocean, because the moon reflects off the water and it's most lit, and the dunes behind them don't reflect water. However, on inhabited beaches, sea turtles will head in the opposite direction. They'll head towards light, they'll head towards cars, towards houses, towards the city. They'll never end up making it to the ocean. Delta head towards the ocean. This group of 8 that I came in joined with for different reasons, but I think all of us wanted to live differently, continue to live differently. Resist the allure that can draw you away from the sea. Love of money, love of comfort, and love of safety. We were not told to chase after those things, and we were not told to love those things. Instead, we're said to love the Lord our God with our heart, soul, and mind, and to love our neighbors as ourselves. So Delta, don't be attracted by artificial light, but go towards real light. Secondly, we will not be satisfied, and we will not be who God created us to be if we avoid those marathon dashes to the sea. We aren't meant to play around in the shallow end or just build sandcastles. We're meant to roam the ocean. And we cannot do that if we do not go through these difficult and trying times. The last 4 months have been the most difficult times of work I've ever had, and I know that for many of you in here, these last months, years, have been some of the most difficult of your entire life. I believe that the healing and growth and the praise that comes out of those difficult times is far more beautiful than anything we could ever imagine while we're going through those difficulties. So please don't allow fear to sabotage the work that God is going to do in your life. Those times must occur in order for richer things to happen. You're walking with me. You are the sea turtles who scrambled up out of the egg, emerged out of the sand, and waddled awkwardly down the beach as we strained with everything we had in this 2-year-long journey with me. We each came for different reasons, but I would not be here if it were not for each and every one of you. For your encouragement to help me destroy lies that I was believing, for your words that challenged me to get off my butt and to keep going, and for your eyes that helped me see hope when my eyes were looking down. I love you guys. You headed toward the sea with me. For that, I will always be grateful. Thank you.